Hello everyone from Pacifica. This is Katya, and today I'm here with Katie Brookshire, one of the owners and the founder of Table Wine, a local wine store that we have in Pacifica. Katie, I'm very pleased. Thank you for taking the time to talk to me today. If you could tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, where you went to school, and when you came to Pacifica.
So originally from San Diego, been in California my whole life, but for the first however many years down in San Diego. Moved up here about 12 years ago with my family. At the time, I was already in the wine business, food and wine business, but San Diego was a little lacking in food and wine. So came up here, moved to Pacifica because my family, my mom was here in Pacifica, and then worked in San Francisco. So it was close enough to San Francisco I could live here and then continue my career in San Francisco. But yeah, that was about 12 years ago. I worked in the city at a few restaurants before deciding to leave that and open my own business.
Interesting. So what brought you to wine?
When I was about 18, 19, I picked up a wine book and was fascinated with the study of it. But I was already in the hospitality industry. I was working in restaurants and then at a time in the food and wine, or the food and spirits business in a casino. And when I turned 21, I wanted to stay in hospitality, but I really wanted a direct path into a career, not just loosely floating around in restaurants. So at 21, I signed up for sommelier coursing, and that was it. By the time I was 22, just after I turned 22, I had gotten my certification as a certified sommelier, started running restaurants and wine programs. Then when I actually picked a path and decided that that was it, it was kind of, it was all over from there. The love of, well, wine in general, but the love of the culture and the history and the geography and the climate and everything around wine is really what fascinates me. So I dove deep and never looked back.
Thank you, Katie. So why Pacifica? Why did you decide to open first of all, when did you open your first store in Pacifica? And why did you decide to do it in Pacifica?
So this last September was 8 years, our 8-year anniversary. So it's been a full 8 years since we opened our original store down in Lindemar. The original plan was just simply to get out of restaurants. I love being in restaurants. I was pretty darn good at it, but I had no life. And I wasn't seeing my son or my wife, and we wanted to own our own business. But when the thought came across of opening another restaurant, that just meant I would be home less. So I decided retail to stay specifically in wine. I wasn't trying to get out of that. That's what I do. And living here in Pacifica, we kind of were toying with the idea of what part of San Francisco would we open a wine shop?
Right.
Where would it be? And then there was just too many nights where I'd get off of work and come home and not have a bottle of wine and have nowhere in Pacifica to buy one. And so we kind of, my wife and I were like, what if we did it in Pacifica? There isn't anything here. San Francisco, there's a lot of competition. So, I can either be one of many wine shops in the city, or I could be the only wine shop in Pacifica. So that was kind of how it came to be.
So and you saw the niche, there is a niche, there is an opportunity here.
And at that point in time, because I was working in the city, I was pulling doubles in the city, I was never home, I was never hanging out in Pacifica. I didn't actually, our son went to school here, but besides that, Courtney and I weren't really part of the community yet. It was more just, this would be a good place because it is a small town, it does need a wine shop, and that was really where it ended. But then once we got the doors open, it became clear to us that it was actually not just the need for the business, but the need for the community.
Need for the community.
And that's where things went from just being a business to being the table wine that we are.
Table wine, yeah. Was it difficult for you to kind of differentiate yourself from the competition?
Not in the slightest. When we opened, our original store was in the same parking lot as Safeway. People were like, oh, that's direct competition. In my mind, that's the opposite. I'm in the same parking lot with a store you have to go to anyways. And you can go to Safeway and buy factory-made wine, or you could walk directly across the parking lot and get something made by a real person. So to me, there was never any competition with the big box stores. The only competition is the other small stores like me, and that's fine. We should all exist. I send people, if you don't live in Pacifica and you live in the city or you live in the East Bay, I'll give you the names of other places to go shop, but small independent merchants. So that was never a worry, because any of those big stores carry large scale wines. You have to. How do you keep your shelves stocked with the same thing at every BevMo? How does Safeway have the same thing on every shelf around the state? Lots and lots of production. So these are factory made wines. We don't do that. So there's actually no competition. And the goal being affordable wines, we also weren't, if we were kind of a stuffy high-end wine shop, maybe people would still continue to shop at Safeway even though they're in that same parking lot. But if you're going to go to Safeway and spend $15 or $20 on a bottle of wine, you may as well come across the street and buy it from somebody who cares, who bought it from somebody who cares.
Yeah. And
that's the difference.
Who knows the wines, and who also treats you in a personable way. That's what I think lacking in these big retailers, right?
Oh, absolutely. Myself, our business, obviously, and most small retailers, walking into somebody's house, their family, employees that, even if it's just an employee, it's somebody that cares in a small place like that. And they actually want you to get a bottle of wine you like.
Thank you, Katie. And I think you also touched upon a very important chord, and this is the being part of the community. We moved out to Pacifica 5 years ago, and we actually were very surprised the way how we were greeted by the neighbors on our street. The neighbors came out and they asked us, "Do you need any help?" And that was so, I think it's very uncommon these days. And a lot of people, that I told this about, they said, well, that's how it was 50 years ago where we are, but not anymore. So what can you say about the community here in Pacifica? How did the people, when you first started, right? What did you feel? Was there like an appreciation for what you do? Did people?
Yeah, I mean, mixed reviews back 8 years ago, and still sometimes people are too afraid to walk in the door because a wine shop is associated with kind of snobbery, and Pacifica's not, as you just mentioned. Pacifica's pretty humble, pretty down to earth. Times are changing, house prices are not low, and so there's a mix of clientele here. But even people that move in that have a good amount of money, they move to Pacifica because they want a small town that's kind of kind. You didn't move here for the big city, so it's people keep complaining about the house prices and everything going up and the price tag of the people that live here. But I think anybody that's choosing to live here, no matter how much money they make, want to be here, and they're looking for this kind of Pacifica. So I welcome anybody that's wanting to move down here. And you see that. I mean, in the old school Pacifica that's lived here their whole life, they're pretty welcoming. It's you walk around on the trails, everybody says hello. It doesn't happen unless you're in a small town. There's good things and bad things about a small town, but I think the goods outweigh the bad.
Yeah, and I see that even we first went to your store when it was still on Lindamar Plaza, and now here on Francisco Boulevard. And I always see, especially in the evenings and weekends, I see people sitting at the counter, chatting, having a glass of wine. So
most people know each other.
Yeah, and I'm sure people come here not just for wine, but for atmosphere, for interaction, right?
Yeah, for a sense of community.
For a sense of community.
Some people come here, solo. They come by themselves because they know they'll end up meeting a friend here, or that it's a safe place. Say you're a single woman, or your partner doesn't want to go out with you. There's only so many bars you want to go hang out with by yourself. We have plenty of people that'll come in here single.
Exactly.
And just because it's a safe space, and safe, but also then you usually end up making a friend.
Exactly, and you're very welcoming. That's another thing. They feel you're happy that they're here, right?
When you come in here, you're in our house.
Right, so right. Exactly.
You get treated as such.
Exactly. And then, Katie, I have one other question to you. So you said that you've just celebrated your 8th year anniversary, right? And I know a lot of small businesses don't make it even through the first year. So what is your recipe for success?
I wish I knew how to put that into words. I've said many times that when I wrote my business plan, I didn't, I'd opened other restaurants for other people, but I wasn't the one writing the business plan. I was the one hiring, I was the one doing the wine list, I was the one getting the end result done. But this I had to do from scratch. And my business plan was, I did know that I wanted things lean. It's just, we have no employees. So 8 years, 0 employees. That's part of the success.
Just you and your wife,
Just
right?
yeah, just Courtney and I. After 3 years of the business being open, she quit her full-time job and came to the shop entirely, and that was the one big switch. And then we've even been able to expand to a space twice as big and keep it with just the two of us. And that is key for one. Overhead,
Yeah, the
obviously, we're not
overhead,
paying
yes,
employees and
yes.
all of those things, which helps us keep our prices where they are and our glass prices
Right.
where they are.
Yes.
It also helps keeps consistency. You know who's in here, we know you, and that
What
part,
your preferences
yes,
are, right?
I did somewhat write that into my initial business plan. I knew I wanted to keep it small and you know not all this huge overhead. But then past that, it was things that you couldn't write in a business plan. Like, how do you make it feel the way it feels in here? You can't put that in a business plan. You can hope it feels nice in here, but that's not, you know, you can't put that down on
I
paper.
know.
But the plan was always to be a spot where everybody felt comfortable. The name Table Wine, you know, the biggest decision you make when you open a business is the name.
Yeah, who
And
came up with this name?
That's me, obviously. Table wine is the most humble form of wine. And it's unfortunate in America, we don't fully understand it. We would call it house wine. But house wine is like that. You don't want to drink it. It's the house wine at happy hour that's not good. Everywhere else in the world you travel, the table wine, the house wine, the vino locale is great. It's inexpensive. It's not going to blow your mind.
I know.
But
In Italy, we were in Italy. I mean,
you don't need to buy a bottle off the list. Just drink the local wine.
Exactly, the local wine.
That was the concept.
And something that's brought to the table, right? When
half the time it's
sitting
free.
with your family, right, having a meal. I mean, it's something. There's something cozy about this, right?
And nobody's waxing poetic about, you know, not that I don't love doing that, but waxing poetic about the soil type or all the other things. It's just wine. It's on the table. It's with you know, it's with family. It's with friends. It's good conversation, and that's table wine. And then everything else was organic. This is the kind of place that I would want to hang out. This is the kind of space that my wife and I would like to welcome you to, and that just happens. And then as people understood that, it's a small town, it's word of mouth, and things just kind of, you know, took off from there.
Thank you so much, Katie. So you have a store and a bar, Table Wine. It's can you
physical location is Pacifica in the Sharp Park district. So for those of you that aren't familiar, basically the exit to the pier.
And the address is
1710 Francisco Boulevard. We're right next to the Hot Green Taqueria.
and you also sell online, right?
Yeah, you can buy online.
What's your website?
TableWineMerchant.com. You can definitely buy online. If you're in Pacifica, you can choose, you know, pick up, and if you don't want to come in, we can drop it in your car. If you're farther away, we can ship. You know, mostly the West Coast, but a few other states as well. And then if you need help past that, if you don't feel comfortable coming in stores yet, you can still call us and we can help you choose something, send you an invoice, and still get it to you.
Wonderful. So as you see, wines here are shelved by region and by country. These are the French wines. And also what's convenient is every wine has a tag that tells about this wine. And this is German and Austrian wines. And then we're moving on to the Eastern European wines. And Katie told us there's wines from Hungary, Croatia, Georgia, Armenia, and many other countries. And then Italian wines, obviously. US wines, California, Oregon, and then Spain and Portugal. Katie, I wanted to ask you about how you decide on which wines to buy, with which distributors to work, from which regions. If you could walk us through this process a little bit.
Well, we can start with the overall. So I mentioned here we're sensitive to price point, so we try to keep things loosely. We used to be 20 and under. Nowadays, we try to same wines, but we try to keep them 25 and under. It's just the way the world's turned.
Yeah.
So that's where we kind of start, and then we definitely require things be at least sustainable. Never factory made, and ideally made by somebody who's got dirt under their fingernails, somebody who's actually working. I always say, we're little guys, we like to support little guys. So those are our minimum requirements. And then the idea is to have something from around the globe. Anywhere that, I mean, everywhere technically makes wine, but anywhere that classically makes wine is represented in here. At any given time, we have between 20 and 25 different countries represented. Obviously, we have probably biggest proportions of California, Oregon, Washington. France is a big one. Italy's a big one. And then we have a whole shelf of Germany, Austria. Our Eastern European shelf's really fun. That rotates. You've got Armenia, Georgian, lots of Hungarian wines, Slovenia, Croatia. So that shelf's really fun because it's definitely going to be things you've never seen or heard of before. And then, you know, plenty from around Southern Hemisphere and Spain and Portugal and all the above. So we want the whole world to be represented. And I mean, you can't help but buy a little bit for yourself, but I don't buy necessarily for me. I buy for the quality of the wine, and, you know, things that other people will like as well. But I buy from probably too many distributors. A small place like me should only buy from a few distributors to keep it easier. But because I like so much variety and I change things all the time, I buy from a lot of different distributors. But I only buy from the little ones, just like the wineries. So if some of you have ever heard of Southern Wine and Spirits, or Young's, or a couple of the other big ones, we don't buy for them. We never have. Because they don't need my money. They're at every other big stores. And they don't need my money. Not that they don't carry a few really good wineries, but it's unnecessary. So we support these small independent importers and distributors. And then I make sure that they also treat their wineries correctly and their employees correctly. I've been known for firing whole companies because they treated an employee incorrectly.
Unethical treatment of employers.
So it goes, you know, it all comes full circle. You don't just buy wine because it tastes good. If it wasn't made by somebody, well, imported by somebody and distributed by somebody that does the right things, then it's what it is. I had a guy when I was in Hungary one time, amazing winemaker, Apostagi, and he went on a tirade because all these producers call themselves organic and then don't pay a living wage and don't care what happens after they don't spray chemicals. And he refuses to be called organic. But he's like, I will not, you know, I only, you know, I take care of people. I take care of everybody that I work with, the whole chain. Otherwise, he won't do it. And that's real organic. That's not nothing you can put on a stamp, but that's real. And so as much as possible, that's who we support.
So he puts his soul into the wine, right?
Yeah, but it can't just stop there. Otherwise, what's the point? So we try to be the end of that chain. Well, you are actually. I'm the last leg before it gets to the consumer. But we make sure that all of those, as much as possible, have been followed. And that is not easy to do, to try to keep it under $25. So we buy from a lot of different companies, and I taste a lot of different wine. You know, in a given week, it's between 50 and 100 wines I taste to try to not only see if they stand up to quality, to the price, to hear the stories, to hear how they were made, to learn about the people who make the wine.
Do you also get feedback and track feedback from your customers? Look, okay, which wine you selling more? You know what? What
and we have
like.
some people that come back and continue to ask for the same ones. Sometimes I can't get them again, and then, you know, actually the good thing about that is then they have to try something new. It's really hard here to get the same wine over and over again. There's very few wines that come back regularly. But if you fall in love with the wine and you can't get it again, I've got another suggestion.
Right. Got it. Well, thank you, Katie. And one other question is, when you talk to your clients here, do you try to educate them about, different wines, different regions, so that people also get a little bit more, knowledgeable and selective about what to buy, what goes well with some dishes, what goes...
We have a range, because some people come in and you can tell they don't want to be educated because they're shy, they're embarrassed, whatever it is. That's fine. I'm here to get a bottle in your hand and get you out the door if that's how you want to be treated. That's all good. We have, little notes on almost all of our wines so you can shop without talking to me if you're embarrassed. But if you want, I can help. I can help with just helping guide. I can help with pairings. We have these amazing customers that have been coming in for years, and they'll come in with their cookbook open and say, "This is what I'm cooking." You know, not just generally speaking, I'm making spaghetti. They'll be like, "This is the recipe." And those many years in restaurants doing fine dining and all the wine pairing and everything, that's easy. That's what I do. So I can help them. I can give them a few suggestions on why they work. And then, you know, with our weekly tastings, whether you like it or not, you're getting educated. So
oh, you have weekly tastings? Tell me a little bit about this.
every Saturday for sure is a tasting event where we bring in one of our importers or distributors or a winemaker. So we have somebody from the company as the expert, let's say. You know, it's not people don't only want to hear me talk. So we bring in somebody else to be our guest speaker, and we pour wines from them. Sometimes it's, like I said, one winery or one region. But when you do that, a lot of times we pull out maps, we'll talk about soil. I've got rocks that I bring out just to be extra nerdy. And yeah, we talk about all of those things. And, you know, if you can tell when somebody doesn't want to know too much, but even if I don't go through the really nitty gritty, you taste 6 wines from one region, you start to understand it. And on the, you know, far end of it, if you want to, and people do, the more they hang out, the more comfortable they get. Start asking questions, and then we really can get into the educational side. 7.
Got it. Well, that's great to know. So it's every Saturday, and what are the hours?
3 to 7 every Saturday, and then, you know, we have other special events, pop-ups throughout the rest of the week. We've got best way to know what we're really doing is our emailer.
Or the emailer?
So on the tablewinemerchant.com, we have a space to sign up for our emailer.
Okay.
And it gets sent out once a week, and all it talks about is what we're pouring that weekend, and then at the bottom there's a little list of upcoming. We have the list on the website of you know who's pouring, but it doesn't. We don't know exactly which wines we're pouring until closer to the date. And so the website gives you just like this week we've got a port tasting on Friday and a champagne tasting on Saturday. So you can see that on our website. But if you're on our emailer, then you can actually see which ports we're pouring, which champagnes we're pouring. But generally speaking, if you don't know, and it's Saturday between 3 and 7, you can come in and taste something and get educated.
And Katie, since you just mentioned that you're educating the customers that are willing to learn more, I wonder whether you could help my husband now to pick up some wines.
Sure.
Show us what's available, and yeah, because we would like to get maybe 2-3 bottles today. If you could help us,
yeah, absolutely.
Would appreciate that. Okay, perfect. Thank you. So Katie is going to help us choose some wine today. This is my husband John, and so Katie will make some recommendations about the wines today.
Great. Yeah.
So you got to start by telling me what you're looking for, and then I take you from there.
Well, I tend to prefer reds, mostly Pinot Noir or that type of variety.
Little lighter.
Little lighter. But I'm open to experimentation.
Sure. All right. Okay, so in general, I mean, the good thing is we have a lot of lighter reds. Pinot Noir is an amazing grape and makes fantastic wine. The problem with Pinot Noir is it's usually pretty finicky and can cost a pretty penny. So we love having people explore a grape that's similar to Pinot, but maybe not exactly that. You can usually find more bang for your buck. So we have a couple Pinot Noirs from Burgundy, from other places in France. But if you're looking for that kind of softer red, one of my favorite places in France is Beaujolais.
Beaujolais, yeah. I was
so
gonna say,
still southern Burgundy.
Yeah,
but Gamay. And Gamay is that lighter-bodied, red-fruited grape, like Pinot Noir, low tannins. But it has just a little bit different fruit component and a little more spice. But usually if you like Pinot Noir, Beaujolais is right on par. This is a Cru Beaujolais. And
I like the label.
Yeah,
it's
cute.
Label,
Chateau Bonnet. Chateau Bonnet is the producer. This is like Cat in the Hat. But this is a completely organic producer, Cru Village, so kind of top tier of Beaujolais, and it's $22. Where if you went up the road to Burgundy proper and spent Burgundy Pinot Noir money, you'd be jumping in price a bit. So you're getting really top-end wines, level Beaujolais. Looking at Beaujolais, there's that option, or for 16, this little guy here is just village level Beaujolais. So the Beaujolais still the same, but it's not the single cru, it's not their high-end now. This is just their everyday Beaujolais. This is $16, and it is delicious. It is just like juice and goes down really easy. So if you want something that's just kind of fun and fresh and fruity and low tannins, that one's fantastic. If you were to do seafood, something like salmon, a little bit richer, fattier salmon, up until chicken is fantastic, pork, and then classically turkey. Usually is the pairing for Thanksgiving.
Oh, interesting.
And Pinot Noirs work in the same fashion. You know, Pinot Noirs are lovely because they're a lighter bodied red, so they can go from lighter dishes into slightly fuller dishes. And Gamay is the same concept. But the second Gamay I showed you is just for, because it just tastes good.
So you don't think this concepts, okay, you have to use white wine with poultry and fish, and
That's a very loose, you know, idea. So it gives you something to work with. If you know nothing at all, sure, white wine with fish, red wine with steak. Where does Pinot Noir go? It's a light red. Pinot Noir has more options. Something like a fuller-bodied white wine also has more options. So you have the kind of, you know, the range, and depends on what kind of fish you have. Depends on what kind of meat you have. You know, a really lean pork is very different than big braised beef cheeks. You know, and that's both meat. So very different depending on what you're cooking and how the preparation is. And then France, we've now moved past Eastern Europe and into Italy.
All right.
So that's how, you know, I help people with the shelves is we kind of walk around and we look at regions and countries. So this is my Italian shelf. You have Northern Italy, Piedmont and Tuscany, and then Southern Italy. So it's all kind of lumped together.
So we get a tour of Europe.
Yeah, exactly. And we can jump over to the U.S. as well. But for the kind of Pinot Noir of Italy, there's a few options to play with. But one of my favorite is if you go to Sicily. This is a wine from Etna Rosso. So this is from Mount Etna, still very active volcano soils. This is like you took a nice light-bodied red like Pinot, but grew it on very volcanic soils. So you get low tannins, high acid, nice red fruit, but a good amount of earthiness. This is really, really kind of a nice alternative to a European style of Pinot Noir.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds like a winner too.
Yep. That would be great with salmon, I would say.
Okay.
And there's, you know, lots of things to play with, but the more I show, the more confused you get as to which one you want.
Yeah, I know.
Too many options
like
is too many.
Options, that's right.
Correct.
What about Italian white wines?
Sure. Well, are we still thinking salmon?
Yes.
Very cool. If you were doing white with salmon, you do, so like a Pinot Noir is a light red. If you do something like a salmon, you want a fuller bodied white wine. So there's a couple ways. There's grapes that are fuller bodied naturally, and then there's winemaking. So that can either be barrel aging. Barrel aging will make a wine a little fuller bodied, but then it adds oak flavor profile. It's not always the best with food, depending on what you're cooking. And the other way is a little bit of skin contact. So white wines don't normally have skin contact. Normally they're just the juice that's fermented.
Just the juice, yes.
So this is just a tiny amount of skin contact. This is a winery called Specogna in Friuli, and they specialize in skin contact wines. So this is their lightest level. If I didn't tell you, you would just think this wine has a nice hue to it. It's very lightly kind of coppery orange in color. They call this style Ramato, which is the Italian word for copper, because it is lightly copper in color. But it takes this grape Pinot Grigio, which you probably think of as a light, simple white wine, and turns it into a richer, more flavorful white wine. And so this can now stand up to salmon. Your average fresh, easy Pinot Grigio, leave that for the, you know, simple, lighter dishes. But for salmon, this would be really lovely.
So there's still no skin here, or
this is a little bit of skin contact.
That's what the Georgians
they do a lot more.
Wine.
Yes, exactly. So this is like a kiss of skin contact, not that whole dense, rich. Yeah, you want a little bit, but you need a lot more richness and intensity of flavor for the full skin contact ones. This is just enough to make the Pinot Grigio no longer light and simple, and to give it just a little more interest.
In which region of Italy is this?
Friuli. So that's the very northeastern corner. It's right on the border between Austria and Slovenia. And this is a really great organic winery. I was actually just there last month. You're interested in the Eastern European wines as well. So this is my Central and Eastern European wine shelf. It's underneath the lights there. But so we kind of start up top with Greece, and then we have a little Israeli and Armenian actually right now. Georgian and Hungarian into Serbian. This is a liter bottle of wine from Transylvania. So this is just because it's fun. This is a Transylvanian liter bottle of house wine. Croatia, Slovenia.
I hope that you have enjoyed watching this video. where I interviewed Katie Brookshire, the owner of Table Wine Store in Pacifica, where we talked about different wines, wine growing regions, food and wine pairings, as well as what made this business successful and a part of Pacifica community. Also, if you like this video, please subscribe to my channel for more videos on local businesses, talented people, and beautiful places in Pacifica, Half Moon Bay, Bay Area, and beyond.